Hi guys, today we're going to learn about the accommodation reflex, which is a very important topic in the special senses chapter of physiology. It is a very short, a very easy topic, so it is something that you should cover before your exams. Before getting right into the explanation, I would really appreciate it if you share the video, if you hit a like and subscribe button on the channel. Okay, getting right into it. Accommodation and adjustment are synonyms of each other. The accommodation literally means adjustment, so it is the adjustment of the eye to see either near or distant objects clearly. It is the process by which light rays from near or distant objects are brought to a focus on the sensitive part of retina. Pretty self-explanatory. We have learned from earlier classes that images are formed on the sensitive part of the retina. It is achieved by various adjustments made in the eyeball. And this is what we are going to learn in the accommodation reflex, that is the various adjustments made in the eyeball. So accommodation reflex is a reflex action. When a person looks at a nearby object after seeing a faraway object, 3 adjustments are made in the eyeball. The definition is again self-explanatory. It's a reflex action for when a person looks at a nearby object after seeing a faraway object. The first adjustment that is done is the convergence of the eyeball due to contraction of the medial recti. Now I want you to imagine this. When you are looking at something very close to you, for example, excuse the bad drawing, these are your eyes, right? And if you're looking at something really close, for example, you can do this right now. You are trying to look at your nose. Your eyeballs will converge towards the center. Try looking at your nose right now. So it will converge. Converge means coming together. Diverge means going apart. Diverge will be in this direction. This is converging. So when you're looking at something really close, your eyeballs will converge. This is the first adjustment, convergence of eyeball due to contraction of the medial recti. Now, if you have done head and neck in anatomy, you will know that medial recti is one of the oculomotor muscles of the eyeball. So for now, just suffice to know that the convergence of the eyeball, that is eyeball movements, are controlled by the medial recti muscle. Right. Also, it is important to know that the medial recti is kind of under your control. Like I told you to do the exercise, so that is under your control. So we can say that it is a skeletal muscle. It is under your control. It is a voluntary muscle, right? So that's the first point done. Second is the constriction of the pupil due to the contraction of the constrictor pupillae of the iris. This is also something that we have learned in earlier classes. When we are looking at a distant object, the pupil will diverge, and when we're looking at a nearby object, the pupil will constrict, right? So that's what we are saying, constriction of the pupil due to contraction of the constrictor pupillae of the iris. So constrictor pupillae is, we already know what it is. It is the part that changes the size of the pupil, right? And then the third point is increase in anterior curvature of the lens due to contraction of the ciliary muscles. But to understand this, I would like you to look at this. This diagram is just for explanatory purposes. Please don't draw this in any exams or anything, because this is very roughly done. So once again, increase in anterior curvature of the lens due to contraction of ciliary muscles. What does this mean? So for example, there is a person or there is a spot at infinity that you're looking at. When there is an object at infinity, the rays are pretty much parallel to each other, and then the lens will diverge it and the image will be formed on the sensitive part of retina. That's how things normally work, right? But for instance, if we take a point which is much closer to the eye, the same mechanism won't work over here, because the rays are no longer parallel. See, the rays are no longer parallel, so the image will be formed beyond the retina if we do not make any adjustments, right? And these two conditions are the same, so the image is being formed beyond the retina since no adjustments are being made. But here, if you look at this, here the lens has been the anterior curvature of the lens has been increased. The curvature of the lens has been increased, so the image will be formed on the retina. Now imagine this in old people, they have thicker lenses. They have reading glasses and they have thicker lenses to read books. They are not able to see things that are close to them. So the thicker the lens, the better the magnification, the more the power, right? Here what we're talking about is power. So thicker lens means more power, better image focus. So that is how we are going to remember this. Thicker lens means more curvature of the lens. So these are basically the ciliary muscles. Okay, remember, these are the ciliary muscles. So increase in the anterior curvature of the lens, that is more thickening of the lens, will help in the accommodation reflex. It will help you focus the image. That's what we're talking about. Increase in anterior curvature of the lens. That's what we saw here. Due to contraction of the ciliary muscles. Here the ciliary muscles will contract to help you focus. So basically one common thing is that all the muscles that are coming into action, all the muscles will be contracting and the actions might be different. For example, convergence of eyeball, constriction of pupil, increase in anterior curvature of lens. But the muscles that are working here will always contract, something that makes it easier for you to remember the stuff. So these are the 3 adjustments, very important main points. Okay, so thus this reflex involves both skeletal muscle, medial recti. As I said, the medial recti is pretty much under your control. So this reflex involves both skeletal muscle and smooth muscles, ciliary and sphincter pupillae. The ciliary muscle and the pupillae of the iris are not under your control. Obviously you cannot control the constriction or dilation of your pupil, you cannot control the curvature of your lens. That is something that the eye does in itself. So involved with skeletal and smooth muscles, all the adjustments are carried out simultaneously. All the adjustment that happens occurs at the same time. Although it is a reflex action, it can be controlled by willpower to a certain extent, right? Since a skeletal muscle is involved here, it can be controlled by us to a certain extent, right? Moving on, this is the main part of the topic. This is the pathway for the reflex. So here, this is pretty much something you will have to learn. From the eye, the reflex travels to the optic nerve, to the optic chiasma next, then to the optic tract, then to the lateral geniculate body, then it diverges into optic radiations, then goes to the visual cortex, then to the frontal eye field. Now this whole part, this whole part, right, till your optic radiations. This is the afferent pathway. This is the impulse traveling from the eye to the brain. See, these are the parts of the brain. So these are the integration centers, right? So this is the afferent pathway. This is the integration center where the processing of the whole the processing of the impulse happens, and this is your efferent pathway, right? So now for this I would recommend a really small mnemonic over here, NCT, right? NCT to remember. From the eye it goes to optic nerve, optic chiasma, optic tract, NCT. After that it goes to the lateral geniculate body, then to the optic radiations, and then it passes to the visual cortex, and then the frontal eye field. So these are both functional areas of the brain that you will learn in anatomy if you haven't already. So first it will go to area 17, that is the visual cortex, and then to the frontal eye field, which is area 8. Frontal eye field will obviously be located in the frontal part of your cortex, right? The frontal part of your brain in the front. So basically imagine it as this. It will stay at the front. In the front your number will be less, at the back your number is more. So from 17 it goes to 8. So that's the way to remember it. From the frontal eye field, now there will be 2 types of impulses: Edinger-Westphal nucleus of the third cranial nerve and somatic motor nucleus of the third cranial nerve. Third cranial nerve is basically the oculomotor nerve. So somatic motor nucleus, so this one, somatic, this will be under your control. So this will be leading to the contraction of the medial rectus. The medial rectus will cause the convergence of the eyeball. Edinger-Westphal nucleus of the third cranial nerve. This is a new name. What I did was remember it as Edinger. It's a Western kind of name, right? Edinger-Westphal nucleus of the third cranial nerve. reflex, nothing much you can do about it. That's the thing with CNS. There are a lot of new names that you need to remember. So Edinger-Westphal nucleus of the third cranial nerve, which will go to the ciliary ganglion, then the short ciliary nerves, which will give impulses to the ciliary muscles, cause the contraction of ciliary muscles. Ciliary muscles contraction, as I said, the ciliary muscle contraction will cause an increase in the anterior curvature of the lens, right? And then the constriction of the contraction of the constrictor pupillae will cause constriction of the pupil. So this is the whole pathway, the most important part of accommodation reflex that you will need to learn. That is it. That is all about the accommodation reflex of the eye. If you want, you can take a screenshot of the notes. That is it. Thank you for tuning in. I hope I was able to do justice to this topic for you. All the best.